Transport officials are manning the country's major routes as holiday travel picks up ahead of Christmas. Gauteng Transport MEC Mamabolo says there's a push to ensure vehicles are roadworthy and that drivers comply with COVID-19 safety protocols. Those who don't will face punishment. He joins us now to tell us more about the measures they've put in place as people rush to various holiday destinations ahead of Christmas. MEC, good evening and thank you very much for joining us on the Newsfeed Late Night.
Good evening to you, to all the viewers. Let me thank you for the opportunity.
MEC, I want us to start here. What is the current practice when it comes to evaluating the implementation of your road safety strategy?
Well, let me say that this year 2020 road safety campaign has proven to be a challenge in terms of our strategic approach, precisely because it involves two issues. In the previous years, we never had to deal with a life-threatening reality like COVID-19 pandemic. So we know that over the years, carnage on the road daily has been a source of loss of life. And this year we have these two challenges at the same time. In our province, in many parts of the country, COVID-19 numbers are rising.
Yeah.
And therefore, our strategic approach has to take these two issues into account. And that is why you would have seen us saying all public transport operators, including commuters, have to take extraordinary measures to protect themselves against COVID-19 and road carnage on the road. So essentially, all the activities and everything that we have been doing has been geared towards these two-pronged sources of threat to human life.
Now, I tell you why I'm asking about the evaluation practice. It's because evaluating campaigns is seemingly an exception rather than the rule, right? It seems we continue to implement some kind of techniques, implement some kind of campaigns that are ineffective, yet we continue. For example, if we look at what happened last festive season, Gauteng showed a 1% increase in fatalities. In fact, about 254 people died on our road. So you got to ask the question, whatever strategy we are putting in place, do we have an opportunity to sit back and evaluate its effectiveness and therefore set ourselves a new target or even change the technique and not spend money on that particular approach, but rather get a different technique and put our resources there to get a better results?
Well, I'll say to you that globally and the world over, the challenge of road carnage and the death on the roads, it's a big problem that has been acknowledged by various international organizations. But here in our country, I can assure you that the activities, the plans, the strategies, the tactical interventions that we put in place, I think in their absence would have been far much worse. Let me give you a practical example. I participated in some of these strategies and interventions just yesterday and a day before yesterday. And I can tell you, for example, we were on the N1 yesterday to Polokwane, just in the city of Tshwane. And we have seen two trends. One is that public transport vehicles that were stopped in an hour, about 181 of them. With respect to COVID-19, wearing of the mask, sanitizing commuters, we have seen high levels of compliance. And we have also checked the vehicles. There were one or two issues here and there, particularly with the taxi industry, but we were in general satisfied with compliance levels. On Friday night, I went to a park station in the city of Joburg. There were areas of concern coming from the buses, particularly and most importantly, relating to COVID-19 compliance. So the point I'm trying to make is that whilst this year we are focusing on COVID-19 and road safety, I think on the COVID-19 message, from my practical real life observation, real situation observation, I'll say that public transport is doing relatively well. Of course, there are those challenges with the buses, but I want to comment and congratulate and really thank men and women in uniform for the excellent work they are doing. I think the weakness that we have, and this one I can concede, is that the level of public awareness and education from road users, I think that is where we have got a big problem. People want law enforcement agencies to tell them to put on a safety belt. People want law enforcement agencies to remind them not to be distracted when they drive by using cell phones. So there's an issue, just like COVID-19, of our own conduct as people. Why can't we just do the right thing? Why do we want somebody to tell you to do the things that you know are right? So to that extent, we mustn't also, with good intentions, create an impression that success in road safety lies exclusively squarely with government. I think on platforms like this one, very strategic platforms, we should all partner to drive a message for behavioral change. And instead of what could actually be seen as saying, this perhaps the weakness is on the government side. I think we need to appeal to everybody and say, just like COVID-19, it's a behavioral attitude issue, conduct, your own personal outlook as a person, how you conduct yourself, exactly with road safety. And you don't need police to tell you to check your mirrors to avoid reckless overtaking. Police are not there at that time. You're doing wrong things knowing that they are wrong. So I'm just saying that we mustn't also, and with good intentions again, we could create an impression that law enforcement agencies, their interventions are not working. I can tell you, they are working. The part where we are lacking, I think we need all of us, not only government, to request members of the public on COVID-19, on road safety, to change their behavior and attitude and comply. If we can drive that message as part of the strategy, I'm quite sure that we will reach somewhere. It should be in you. It should come out of you to know what is wrong and what is right, and not to wait for a stick from a police person that may not be there and you can lose your life. So for me, the strategy must change. All of us must enter into a partnership to promote road safety, be it mass media platform, mass communication, all of us should join hands because this is about threat to human life.
No, I agree with you, MEC, in the sense that, of course, what we're dealing with here is the human factor. It is us, human beings, who make the difference between hazard and safety. But
and thanks for agreeing. Thanks for agreeing. Thank you for agreeing.
But here's the thing.
Thank you very much.
But here's the thing, though, MEC. Your approach and your submission to me right now is that you expect that people will be rational in their behavior because they've got the information. They know they're not supposed to be distracted. They know they're not supposed to be speeding. But when you talk about behavioral patterns, it goes a little bit more deeper than that. There is more. There are some behaviors, for example, in society that become automatic, right? There are some behaviors in society, for example, speeding. There are people who still believe speeding is something that is socially acceptable. So yes, the messaging may be do not speed, and yes, there would be the visibility of police, but they would still behave in a manner that is automatic because that kind of behavior is socially acceptable. So what I'm saying is that yes, there are measures that we have put in place, but what are we doing further and differently to what we've done before to get more results? And what are we looking at as far as behavioral change is concerned to get people a little bit more compliant?
Yeah, let me support your point with an example. Whilst we expect people really to do things differently and to take extra responsibility for their own lives, But there's an example I'd like to give you. When I went to Park Station in the city of Joburg on Friday night, it was worrying that the bus companies that are tenants at the facility of PRASA, who are responsible for their clients who are commuters who have bought tickets and are boarding. I mean, when people are carrying bags and it's in the evening, they are rushing to go to wherever they are rushing, they are worried about the trips. The bus companies could support the people by making sure that there's proper queue management. There are sanitizers. There's clear queue management, crowd control, and clear visibility that support people. Secondly, to support you, infrastructure on the road. We must do our part as government to make sure that we have got infrastructure that support road safety. So in essence, and of course the police as well, there are police that take bribes instead of enforcing the laws. There are police who also do not necessarily do their part. So to that extent, I want to also agree with you that there are things that we could do. There are things that many of us could do, and we're not doing them. But I think at the end, we must agree, and I hope we will agree, that we need a multi-pronged approach than singling out one intervention or placing emphasis over it. All these interventions together, complementing each other, should be able to make an intervention. I've already said the bus companies in the city of Joburg and the PRASA must be condemned, but also need to be engaged by PRASA management at the city, at the Park Station. And we've agreed to that. They must explore contracts that they have with them. They must look at imposing serious restrictions, including fines. We as government, we issue them operating licenses. And in that, we should be able to make sure they protect commuters. They can't just take money. So to that extent, I agree with you. There are things we could do better as government as part of our strategy. But at the end, we mustn't lose sight of the fact that all these multidisciplinary interventions are required to find a solution. We need mass communication media platforms to drive road safety messages, COVID-19 compliance messages. So to that extent, I agree with you. There are things we could do and do better. But at the end, this is a partnership of the people.
On top of the mass media campaigns that we run on an annual basis, what targeted approach are you taking? Because I'll tell you why. For example, last year, the national strategy was to deal with minibus taxi drivers, and there was a focus and a key focus messaging for that community. It wasn't mass, but it was directed at them. And we do see the results based on the reporting that happened last festive season, that there were less fatalities that included minibus drivers because their messaging was a little bit more direct.
Yeah, so the biggest challenge that we have is pedestrians, light delivery vehicles, and those and of course private vehicles, motorists. So in the order of areas of focus, drivers of private vehicles on the road are the biggest contributors to violence according to to road carnage according to states, and followed by light delivery vehicles, and then the taxi industry. So to that extent, as I'm saying, what government has moved from over the years was putting strictly emphasis just on one. Of course, we looked at the taxi industry, but as I'm saying, the message this year is very clear. Obey the rules of the road, obey the protocols of COVID-19. And that applies across buses, taxis, motorists, everybody, pedestrians, everyone who's on the road. So that is what we are focusing on. And that's what we are saying to people on the road and to people who are traveling, including to the extent that it is possible, stay where you are.
All right.
And one issue that we are also emphasizing this year is the relationship between alcohol, COVID-19, and road carnage. Those three things have a relationship. People drink, they go to the road, they are from parties, super spreaders. So these are the type of things we are doing. But I think in general, multidisciplinary, multi-pronged, all-rounded interventions is what will help us.
MEC, appreciate your time. That's MEC Jacob Mamabolo for transport here in the Gauteng province.